We're here today at the beautiful Prallsville Mills in Stockton, New Jersey, venue for this Saturday's concert, Saturday, May 28 at 7:30 p.m., featuring 9 horses. And we're joined today by Joe Brent and Andrew Ryan of 9 Horses. Sara will be joining us on Saturday. Guys, welcome.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's going to be very exciting to feature 9 Horses for the first time on the Raritan River Music Festival. Sorry, we had to wait 33 years to make it possible, but I guess you probably weren't even in existence 33 years ago. But Joe, you're the connection here, having been a student and teacher, I believe, if I got it correct, at Mannes School of Music.
Almost. I actually auditioned to be a student at Mannes. My idea was that I would go back and finish up my master's and doctorate. But as I recall, I had auditioned at Juilliard and Manhattan School, and each said, well, we'd love to have you, but like we don't really offer any accredited coursework in mandolin, and so there's really nothing we can do with you. I went to Mannes, and Mannes and the new school in generally has a little bit more of a progressive curriculum, I would say, or a progressive philosophy in their pedagogy, over the years. And so you said, I believe that some version of, well, we don't have any coursework or a department that can teach you mandolin, but if you're interested in creating one, we'd be happy.
We'll hire you to teach. Right, that was it. That's how it worked out. That's right. There was a classmate of mine, a classical harmonica player named Robert Bonfiglio, who was in a very similar situation, 45 years ago. And there was no classical harmonica position anywhere. So he ended up being a composition major at Mannes and has pursued his performance career ever since.
That's what I thought I might end up doing, if no one wanted to give me, a place to operate as a mandolin focused performance major, which is not really what I was going to do anyway. So I would have been okay changing tracks, but I was very happy to have the offer from Mannes, because I was going back to finish up my sort of postgraduate degrees with an eye on teaching later on. And so I feel like I just hit the fast forward button on that. I got to Mannes. It worked out great.
Yeah. And Andrew, what was your history with school versus career and performance life?
Well, I think for so long in the bass playing community, a little bit of that crossover status has been minded with some more acceptance generally. So that was really important when I went to school for me, was to be able to basically study jazz and classical music and kind of get into all of it. And one of the things I always say is that being a bass player is like whoever decides that you're in their band, that's what kind of bass player you are. That's kind of how we end up defining ourselves, rather than kind of forming our own mission statement a lot of the time. But
you are the backbone. Nothing exists totally without you as the foundation for all of the chords being built up from the bass.
Ooh, yeah, testify. Totally. Yeah, I'm with you. So I basically went and did my schooling kind of with an eye toward being able to adapt to a bunch of different situations when I was done. And that's kind of actually how I got hooked up with Joe and Sara, being similarly minded musicians, of course, who are interested in jazz and have classical upbringings, and kind of like float that or toe that line between a bunch of different influences and genres. So
Yeah, yeah. People will be familiar with the diversity of Raritan River Music Festival's offerings if they've followed us at all. But we've run the gamut from medieval vocal music, including Anonymous 4, when they were
Cool.
still anonymous in one of our first years, plus also an ensemble from America's Society, Music of the Americas, doing early music, to music written, well, basically last week before the concert. So Joe, tell us where Nine Horses fits into this spectrum. Is it classical? Is it jazz? Is it new music? Does it have Baroque influences? I've heard a reference to a group that was neo chamber jazz. And so you tell us all about Nine Horses.
So the answer to all of the above questions is yes. I would say we're a pretty wide swath of the Venn diagram of different kinds of music. There's certainly, I think, because of the fact that improvisation is a load-bearing part of what we do, it would be easy to say that this is like a jazz band or an improvising ensemble. And yet the structures of the pieces are really very classically influenced, and my composition is very classically influenced. There's going to be a tune that you're going to hear on the program that has a fugue in perfect classical counterpoint in the middle of it that spills out into a sort of an Iraqi influenced, Middle Eastern influenced, sort of melodic structure over the course of a long piece that sort of touches on everything that we do.
Wow, what's the name of that piece we'll be listening for?
That piece that has the fugue in it, the title of it is I believe it's the second movement of a larger piece called Perfectest Herald, and the second movement, the title of the movement itself is called Listening to the Elliott Smith Discography in Reverse Order.
Okay, and you did say Iraqi, not Rocky, like not from Rocky,
not Rocky. No,
Picture
Iraqi.
Show, or from Rocky in Philadelphia.
I had been listening to an Iraqi oud player, and I thought, well, I don't want to try to write a kind of piece that this guy is playing because I don't feel like I know enough about this kind of music. But the way that he would structure the melodies of his improvisations, I felt like I could take little bits and try to write something that still sounded like us, like Nine Horses, but had a little bit of the flavor of like the way that he would approach, melodic stuff. I think the general philosophy when I write for this ensemble that differentiates it from classical composition, which is what I actually studied in school, is that I found that being a classical composer, I hate to use a word with a connotation that isn't quite what I'm going for, but it wasn't really for me because it ended up being me alone in a room writing for people that I may or may not ever meet. And that didn't really do it for me. But what really works for me is being more collaborative in the way that these pieces are written. And Nine Horses is exactly that. The group was put together with that in mind, and that I would write the pieces kind of halfway and then leave space for Sara and Andrew to add their voice and to add their sort of individual, what they do, to the piece. And I found that every time they do, the piece improves, even when it isn't exactly what I might have had in mind. The point of it is that Sara and Andrew and whoever we collaborate with has agency over the composition of the piece. And in doing so, it becomes something much more interesting to me than just, something that is solely of myself.
Right. Andrew, when you were first working with the concept of Nine Horses, how did you find this group was different from the other musical experiences you've had during your career?
Apart from intimidating, I was very young when I started playing with these folks, and Sara and Joe definitely kind of like, I was new to New York and they kind of brought me in and, you know, showed me the way in a lot of ways. It was really cool. But musically, it was really liberating, because I think probably similarly, I was always kind of the kid getting in trouble for like improvising my part in orchestra and like, you know, crossing those boundaries that we know in the professional world, like you don't cross those, right? But when you're young and the stakes are low, you just kind of are doing whatever and having fun playing music. And so one of the things that Joe always says when we approach a new piece is play the ink unless you can think of something better. And so he really, like, more than it's actually more like working with a songwriter or something, or a producer, where they kind of play you the song and then you get to kind of make up your own part in a way, or they're like, this is the groove that I want happening, and you kind of use that as a launch pad to construct something of your own within that context. And that's been really a really nice experience. It's actually made it somewhat difficult to play a lot of other new music and classical music for me, because I occasionally want to drop things down an octave or you know, go wandering up the neck to create some drama or something. And you know, there aren't that many contexts where that's really not only allowed, but it's encouraged, right?
Yeah, you know, I would say to everybody listening to this discussion, the venue here behind me, this mill, is going to be such an amazing place to hear this music happen, because the mill itself goes back to the 18th century. And this particular part of the building was from the mid 1800s. And it's all wooden, and you can actually hear the water running underneath the venue, and there's a millstone right in the middle of the stage. So it's about as eclectic a concert venue as you're going to find. And so the music seems to really capture that combination of so many different elements. For people who want to come to the concert in person, they can do that. Go to the website Raritan River Music.org for ticket information. But for everybody who doesn't live within shooting distance of Stockton, New Jersey, which is actually only about 5 minutes from New Hope, Pennsylvania, a very popular area, pretty much halfway between Philadelphia and New York. This concert is being recorded, and it will be available for a few days after the concert itself through an unlisted video link that you'll have to buy a ticket for. So go to raritanrivermusic.org for that information as well. Joe, Andrew, Sara, wherever Sara is, thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having us. And we're really looking forward to the concert and meeting all the folks out there.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Great. And I will leave everybody today with a joke that I never tell jokes, but I'm going to right now, because Andrew, you're moving from Canada to New York. So,
that's right.
Do you know the difference between a Canadian and someone from Brooklyn? You can say no. Okay.
No.
Okay, good. I can tell this joke because I'm from Brooklyn. A Canadian says, "How you doing, eh?" And a Brooklynite says, "Hey, how you doing?" So now you can learn the new accent and you'll be in good shape.
Perfect.
Everybody, thanks so much. We'll see you at the concert on Saturday.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.